And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I'm so excited to welcome back #1 New York Times best-selling author Jonathan Kellerman, here to give us the inside scoop on his brand new red hot book, Unnatural History. John, welcome back. Tell us about Unnatural History.
Well, it's first of all, I have to say it's been an interesting time. I had surgery 3 weeks ago.
Oh my
I
gosh.
had my right hip replaced. Old sports injury come to roost.
Wow.
But fortunately, I could sit. So they say I'm in the top 1% of healers. I'm walking. I'm 2.5 weeks later. So I'm really happy to be here. But a few weeks ago, about a month ago, one of my daughters gave birth to my 12th grandchild, and 5 hours later, my mother passed away, just shy of her 103rd birthday, and then I had surgery. So it's been crazy, but we will talk about the book.
Oh my God. Well, first of all, Jonathan, before we talk about the book, first of all, I'm so very sorry about the loss of your mother.
Yeah. Well,
I had no idea.
As I say, she was almost 103.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What she clearly she had the tenacity of a sassy, feisty soul.
Very feisty. Very.
All of my grandmother lived until 95. Her sister lived to 99 and a half. My aunt Aida lived until 99 and a half. Little old Mediterranean ladies like to live long, and she sounds like one of them.
Well, there's two groups. There's Mediterranean ladies and little Jewish ladies.
Little old Jewish ladies.
5 feet tall, 100 pounds, that kind of thing. So I'm hoping I have some of that genetics, because I feel it, as I say, I'm healing up very, very well. And but we can talk about books. I know you do yoga, and my mom was so limber she could touch the ground with her elbows without bending her knees.
Wait, what?
Yeah. She was a dancer, and I can touch with the flats of my hands, which for a guy is pretty limber. So, and one of my daughters, I have 3. One of my daughters was a contortionist.
So in Cirque du Soleil.
I mean, she was like a 14-year-old kid, and we're sitting watching a thing on contortionism. She says, "Oh, I can do that." We go, "Really?" And she sits down and puts her feet behind her head and starts doing crazy stuff. And I have grandchildren who can do it. It's apparently it's the chemical composition of your ligaments. So I think it helped me heal from my surgery, being limber.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. So secondly, congratulations on your 12th child.
12th grandchild.
12th grandchild.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. And then to just have a hip replacement and to be told you are in the top 1% of healers, you are experiencing the entire spectrum of life right now.
They might be lying to me, but that's what they're telling me. And the nice thing is I could walk without a cane after 2 weeks. I can drive. Wow. And I can sit here and talk to you. So that's pretty good.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, especially after having your hip replaced. And we're so glad that you are in the top 1% of healers, possibly due to your amazingly flexible limber genes.
I owe it all to my mom. Rest in peace.
Yeah, exactly. May her memory be a blessing.
Yeah.
Jonathan, we're so happy to have you back and to share your latest book and all of your life updates with all of us. So we're so excited to talk to you again. You were one of our favorite interviews from last year. Someone emailed me, Margaret Bernard from Portland, Oregon, emailed and said, Jonathan Kellerman and his troop of amazings, because you have such a talented and widely varied talents of families. Thank you. Leslie joining us now from Canada, saying hello from Canada. Laura saying hello from Sacramento, California. Welcome to the conversation. Kathleen saying, good evening from Daytona Beach, Florida. I am on my 11th Jonathan Kellerman book, and I am loving all of them.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Guess what, Kathleen? This baby's out tomorrow, and Jonathan is joining us to give us the inside scoop in this very special pre-launch event. So let us know if you have any question here, because this could be your 12th book. This could be your 12th Kellerman right here.
It's one for each of my grandkids, right?
Oh my God.
Numerology.
I love that. Samuel says, thank you for all of your excellent stories, Jonathan.
Appreciate it.
Angela says she's checking in from Louisville, Kentucky. Angela, welcome to the conversation. So, Jonathan, this is not your first rodeo. Aline Cogdell, who is the book critic for the Florida Sun Sentinel, also Publishers Weekly and Shelf Awareness, came on 2 weeks ago to give us her best books of winter and spring 2023. This was one of her picks. And she praised your ability to write about LA, the city, as a character, as a gritty, as she said, as only Kellerman can. So, Jonathan, what have you learned from book one all the way up to the Unnatural History out tomorrow about the craft of writing?
You know, what I've learned is really to just try to do a good job, not phone it in. I've written so many books, and
Ooh.
I think you run the risk of, getting stale, but I don't, because I love what I do, and I write the kind of book that I like to write. So I think it's just a matter, it's just work ethic. And it's not just me. I talk to guys like Stephen King and Dean Koontz. The guys who last are the guys who treat it like a job and are professional about it. And we don't get too distracted by the trappings of bestsellerdom. We really enjoy the craft of writing. And if you enjoy it, your readers are more likely to enjoy it, I think.
I love that, because I think it's really interesting, when as a reader, you're sitting and you're reading, a book that is, pages from a tree. It's not a living thing, but it feels like a living thing.
Yeah.
And when the writer is having a good time, and when you love what you do, that comes through, which is interesting that energy comes through a non-live medium.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing, isn't it? It's such a strange job.
Why do you think that is?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Why
do you think that is?
It's a strange job, because you sit in a room by yourself and type. And the thing is, people talk about writing a novel. They unless they've done it, they don't have a concept. People come up and say, "Oh, I have an idea." I said, "Great, write a book." Ideas are nothing. Everyone has ideas. Transforming ideas into a book is a very complex process. And I think it requires your entire brain. We always talk about the right brain or left brain. That's really not true. The guy who invented the concept regrets it. What there is integration between the hemispheres of the brain. There's no right and left.
Ooh.
There's integration and traffic carried from hemisphere to hemisphere. So with writing, if you want to talk about the cliched left brain thing, you need grammar and spelling and structure and organization. Then there's all the other stuff, all the creative plots and crazy ideas. People say, where do you get your ideas? I don't know. After doing it for 40 years, I just joke that I'm getting paid to do what I got in trouble in school for, which is spacing out and making up stories. And my wife can do it, and my kids can do it. So I think it's just kind of a brain defect that we made the best of, really.
That is interesting. But Jonathan, when we spoke last year, which was such a pleasure, you also shared, you're a Renaissance man. You play the classical guitar. Are you still doing that?
Oh, yes.
You paint.
Yes.
You are a creative guy in a lot of different ways. Yeah. So it's like that's creativity is coming out of you.
Well, what my wife Faye tells people, they say, "Oh, John, he's such a good painter. He can play guitar." She says, "You don't understand. It takes hours and hours of practice. He works really hard at all this stuff. Yeah, you'll have to be born with some of this, but unless you like it and are driven to do it, you're not, for example, they once did a study looking at the difference between, let's say, the soloists who play the violin and people who play in an orchestra. People who play in an orchestra are really talented. What separates them from Itzhak Perlman? And they found it was the ability to practice for 6 hours a day. So it's work, but if you like it, it's easier to do. I just happen to really, I've always been driven towards science. I got a PhD in psychology. I was a medical school professor. I enjoy that. And the other stuff I never thought would be a job. It's just what I really like doing. But strangely, it became my second profession.
It's strange and fascinating.
Yeah.
I liked when you said that you love what you do. And that, because again, I think that joy comes through. Lois saying, I love what he does too.
Thank you.
Penny saying, love your books, from Penny in Texas City, TC. Penny, thanks so much for joining the conversation, for tuning in with us tonight. Jonathan, was the process of writing this book, which everybody, out tomorrow. I'm going to share the link so that you can pre-order it. And the good folks at Murder by the Book, our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore, will ship it out to you. We'll ship it out to you tomorrow. Mystery Suspense Magazine says this is Kellerman at his very best. What do you think? What does that mean to you? What is Kellerman at his best?
I was really, really tickled because whenever you put yourself out there, be you an athlete or a writer or an actor or a musician, you have to understand some people are going to like you, some people aren't. Generally, I've been treated quite kindly by the critics, but every so often you get people who don't like you, and that's just the way it is. This particular book, and I've written, dozens of books, I've gotten 100% uniform praise. People seem to just love this. I don't know why. I really don't analyze it because honestly, this was the first of my COVID books. I call it the COVID books. I wrote 3 Delaware novels during COVID.
Wow.
And because Faye and I were in the house here, I mean, it's a nice size house, but we were still isolated. We couldn't travel. And my editor told me, she goes, John, you're the only one. She goes, everybody, all the other writers were shutting down.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I like what I do. So I just wrote books. And this is the first one. There's 2 other books finished. I'm working on a book, which I'll show you right here. Here is proof, manuscript. See? And that's coming out in 2026. So, I just think, I don't know why everyone loves it. I don't analyze the books. I don't think about them because once I finish them, I move on to the next book, basically. It's like surrogate parenting,
Wow. Well, first of all, I just love that we all got a glimpse of your manuscript, Jonathan.
Yeah, there it is sitting there, 103 pages.
I mean, to get to see that now, what in 3 years will look like, an actual book is so, we just got to see this before anyone else did. I feel so special. Thank you for sharing that with us.
My pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Angela says she can't wait until tomorrow. She's going to start reading it at midnight on Apple Books. Angela, I hadn't considered that was an option. Thank you for sharing. Laura says, I don't know where Jonathan gets his ideas, but I always find his books reflect what is happening in the news and popular culture. They are always fresh, relevant, and modern. Laura, I love that. Jonathan, your response.
Well, I'm 73 years old, but as I say, my mom lived till 103, and I come across younger. I feel like a young guy still.
Yeah.
Even my hip, the doctor said, everything else is perfect. This is not aging. You had a sports injury that just deteriorated. So I just like to keep in touch with what's going on. I'm a curious. Here's the thing. To be a good writer, you have to be very, very curious about life.
Ooh.
And so I'm always looking for things. My eyes are always open. I remember I'll talk about Dean Kuntz again. And years ago, Dean and I were having lunch, and he said, people recognize me now, which is really bad because I like to eavesdrop. I want to hear what other people are saying. I don't want to be noticed. It's not. I think the thing about being a writer, you can sell a lot of books, and people don't know who you are. And I really like to keep a low profile because then I can eavesdrop. So but I just read vociferously, and I'm very curious about the world. I don't try to write about about social justice or anything. I just try to write about people. And I'm curious about people and how people change in different situations. You talk about Los Angeles being a character. That was always my intention from the first Delaware novel, because LA is a strange town. I've always perceived it as a third world nation.
Ooh,
Because there's extreme differences between the haves and the have-nots. Big differences with a shrinking middle class to some extent. It's also, when I moved to LA, my family moved in '59. LA was not just a company town for the film business. It was aerospace. It was a fairly conservative place. It was like any other city. Now it's utterly dominated by the film business and TV and entertainment. And these are businesses that truck in fantasies and truck in lying and involving I don't like to have much to do with that business because, well, I'll give you a good example. Elmore Leonard wrote a book called Get Shorty, and they made a movie of it with John Travolta. Yeah. And the premise of this book was that you have a guy named Chili who's a bone breaker for the mob in Florida. He's a really bad guy, and he beats people up for a living. And then he comes to LA, gets involved with the film business, and he's appalled by the terrible people that he meets. So it was Dutch Leonard's way of satirizing the film business. I find it a very disreputable business, and one that I'm really not attracted to, but I am attracted to writing books. Ooh. And so I just think LA is very fertile ground for a good crime novel. And it's not a coincidence that some of the best crime novels have been set in California.
Ooh. I like the idea of LA being fertile ground for a crime novel. Lois saying that she's had this book pre-ordered for 2 months now.
Wow,
and that Dean Koontz and Jonathan Kellerman are her 2 favorites. Also 2 favorites of mine, Lois. And I love the idea of these 2 greats having a lunch together.
It's been a while because Dean doesn't go anywhere anymore. So, and he lives far away, but we used to hang out a little more, and he's a brilliant man. I mean,
I like the idea of I can picture in my head Jonathan and Dean having lunch and both enjoying confessing to be eavesdroppers and both enjoying that. So Jonathan, what's the craziest thing you've ever overheard?
I've heard people bragging about scams they're pulling on people. I've heard people having affairs. I mean, you just sit and have lunch and you could hear stuff. But mostly that's not where I get stuff. I mean, I joke about being an eavesdropper, but I'm using it in a generic sense of my eyes are open and I'm curious about people. I'm curious about places. I'm curious about architecture. I'm curious about the world. If you're not curious, I don't think you can become a successful writer.
I love that. Oh my God, Jonathan, I absolutely love that. I feel like you're teaching us a masterclass. Also, I feel like when Dean Koontz and I went to lunch, I mean,
it's name dropping, right? I mean,
no, it feels like it feels like the first line of a joke. I'm waiting for
I'm going to tell you a humbling experience. Years ago, Faye, my wife Faye, also a brilliant writer. We were at lunch with Dean and a guy named Brian Garfield. Okay, and this was, I think I'd written a dozen books at that time, and Faye had written 11. And Brian's the guy who created the books from which the Charles Bronson movie Death Wish came. Mm-hmm. So they're sitting around talking, and Brian and Brian says, I say, how many books have you written? Brian goes, 70. And how about you, Dean? 52. I'd written a dozen. I was so staggered by it. Now I'm at the point where I know I've written close to 60 books of fiction and nonfiction, but God knows how many Dean's written. No, it was just staggering that these 2 guys were older than me, but not. One was 10, I think they're 10 years older than me, but still 50 books, 70 books. The reason they had written so many is these guys came up in the rough and tumble days of paperbacks, and they were getting paid like nothing to write paperback westerns and mysteries, 1 a month. So they were just churning out these books, which was great training because you get to discipline yourself. I'm lucky that when I got published, it was hardcover publishing, so it was a little more respectable. I didn't have to go through that. And I also had a good day job when I was still trying to be a writer, so I didn't need to write soft porn and that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh. Exactly. Hey, you not this time anyway. You never know. You never know what's going to happen, Jonathan. When Dean Koontz came on the show, he shared that he gets his butt in the seat at 7 a.m. He does not stop for lunch. He said he does not eat carbs for breakfast because carbs slow his mental processes down. He eats some eggs, and he does not break until 5 p.m. Then he and his wife and their 2 dogs go out to dinner. He does not get up. He does not take breaks until he gets those words down, until it's happening. Now, this is a level of dedication and grind that Sara DiVello does not have. Jonathan,
me neither. Me neither. That's not me.
Okay,
I mean, Dean's just a very intense guy. First of all, Faye and I raised 4 kids, so that's a big difference. You know, we had kids to raise, and we have a bunch of grandkids. Dean and Gerda don't have any kids, so if you don't have kids, what are you going to do? So we were always distracted. In fact, we had an assistant once. Her previous boss had been Bruce Springsteen, and she never let us forget this. This was her claim to fame, and she was British. She was British, and she turned to Faye once, and she said, "Faye, you're my first boss who cooks." So here's my wife, who's also a bestseller, and she's a doctor, and she's beautiful and brilliant, and she's driving the kids to school and cooking breakfast. We sit down with the kids. So we didn't have that freedom just to sit and write. We had to work it. And my son, Jesse, who's also a brilliant best-selling writer, he has 5 kids. He has 5.
Wow.
They tried for a 4th and got twins. So they have 5 kids. So he's, and his wife works also. And so he's writing books too. And he's really, really having to be efficient. So you have to squeeze it in. Since the kids are out of the house, which is a while, we have a lot more freedom, but I don't have that kind of a work schedule. It doesn't take me that long. My usual schedule is I get together with Faye, we have coffee, we relax, we listen to music, and eventually I get to my office, which is the room you see now, which is a lovely place. And I go feed the fish, or I have a pond outside, and my dog comes in. And then I sit down and I write till I start making typos. When I start making typos, I know that it's also, I tend to write pretty, it doesn't take me a full day. My usual output is 5 pages or so. It's been as little as 2, as many as 17. But I can tell once I start typing poorly, my brain is fried, and that's it. I just write till I'm finished. And it doesn't take that long to write a book if you plan it properly. Think about it. If you write 5 pages a day, right? And a manuscript is 400 pages. That's 80 days of writing. And now I do 15, 20 drafts. So I start each day by rewriting the previous day. But if you're efficient and you don't get distracted, I think that's the key. And that's what Dean is talking about. He doesn't want to get distracted. And although when we had little kids in the house, they were always free to come into my office. I never it was never a hassle. Somehow you manage to make it work, basically. But it helps if you like it,
Exactly. It helps if you like it. So okay. So unlike Dean, the carb avoiding, hard-boiled egg eating, no breaks during the day, machine that King Dean is. So, okay. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So you have coffee with Faye, also a best-selling author in her own right. You go outside, you feed the fish, you sit down, you start writing. Does it take you a little bit to click into that writer brain, or because you have been doing this for a while and you are a creative guy and you're a well-oiled machine yourself, do the words just start flowing? Do you ever feel stuck? I mean, let us into your process.
I've never experienced writer's block. And I think the reason is writing a book for me is a one year process, but half of that time, 6 months or so, is spent thinking, making notes, outlining, planning. So it's like building a house. I have a full set of blueprints. If I'm prepared, then I find the writing clicks. What gets me writing is the act of sitting down at my keyboard and just going. But I have thought about it. I have thought about it while taking a bath. I have thought about it while on my exercise cycle, or running or walking, or just hanging out. I have thought about it when I woke up. I've thought about it at 3 a.m. when I wake up, and I say, what am I going to do in the next scene? So given all that planning, once I finally sit down, I'm generally pretty prepared. And then I've never blocked, but I've written crap. I've written stuff I don't like, but I just go back and rewrite it. You know, one thing, if you've written a lot of books, it does build up your confidence. You feel, if I paint myself into a corner, I can paint myself out. I've created a lot of words. My key is, because I do a series, I'm treading a thin line. I want all my lovely fans to feel that, what I call the comfort of the familiar. We're back with Delaware and Milo. But I want a new reader to be able to pick up a book anytime, anywhere in the series, and be able to get into it. So you're balancing that. And once again, I keep coming back to it. I wouldn't do this if I didn't like it. I don't need to work. I enjoy doing it. Publishing is not the fun business that it used to be. I just love the act of writing books. So I'll put up with publishing.
I love that. I just want to make sure I understand. So of your 1 year process, the first 6 months you are thinking about it, and you are with it on the exercise bike when you wake up at 3 a.m. on walks with your dog. It is you are just in that world, creating. The neurons are firing. The ideas are spinning. That's 6 months. Then
3 to 6, 7 months, and then once it's done, and I do several outlines. I'll start off with general notes. Then I do a general outline. Then I do a chapter by chapter outline. Now, not everybody does it. I like doing it. The interesting thing is, when I go back and read the outline, I've created a totally different book. But I think what the outline does is give me a sense of confidence and structure. And so I kind of have a general sense. But all that said, once I get down, I create these characters. They surprise me. So someone I think is going to be a good guy turns out to be a bad guy. Someone I think I'm going to hate, I start to understand him, to understand her, to see a little human dimension there. So you're constantly improvising. I guess music's a good way to look at it. You have your basic riff, and then you can improvise on it. And that's what I enjoy about it.
Now, Jonathan, let's pause on that and dive a little deeper. If you are the creator of these characters and of this world, but yet they are, as you have just shared with us, surprising you, where do you think these characters are coming from? Where is the generative energy? Are you a conduit? Is it a divine process? Are you channeling?
It's bizarre. I don't really understand it. It's just, I will conceive a character out of like, for example, Milo Sturgis. When the series first came out, everyone said, "Oh, I know who you use for that. I know who that guy is." But he was made up out of whole cloth. He does not resemble a real person. I have always avoided the Romana Clay writing a thinly disguised nonfiction book in fiction. I think it's tacky, and I think it shows a lower level of creativity. People don't understand that weird people like us novelists, we like to make stuff up. And I mean, I see it in children. There's a certain amount of childishness to it. You ask kids and they tell stories and they go on and on and on. And I think we novelists are people who maybe didn't lose that. It's not something, if you don't make a living at it, people think you're crazy. But if you make a living at it, they think you're very smart. So.
I love that.
But I think curiosity, and I don't understand the process. I really don't. I think it's magical. I just think I'm really lucky. But I want to emphasize, you have to combine it with really hard work and a great work ethic, like everything else.
Jonathan, you're getting so many hearts and likes just floating up on Facebook. It's so nice to see this resonating with everybody so much. And because it's fascinating, even just hearing you talk about your process is energizing and joyful. Like, your energy is coming across to us, and I can see and hear your love and your respect of this. Laura saying Jonathan isn't afraid of carbs.
I probably should be, but no, I mean, I try to eat healthy. During this recuperation from my surgery, the surgeon gives you a little book and he says, eat lean carbs, eat iron rich. Eat lean protein rather. Proteins. So Faye every morning would make me a couple of scrambled eggs. So I guess, so we're doing the Dean Koontz thing.
You're on the Dean Koontz diet.
I think what's really important is great coffee. Let me tell you something. Oh my God. Great coffee.
Amen to that.
This is it,
Grateful Lino, welcome to the conversation. She says, thank you for the stories, Milo and Dr. Delaware.
Thank you.
Yay. Thank you for joining the conversation. Jonathan, one more thing I wanted to share. The Real Spy Book says, quote, it says, Kellerman still one of the most talented authors working today. Kellerman dials up yet another page-turning adventure starring Alex Delaware. I'm going to pop this up so we can all actually read it together.
Very sweet. My head is swelling,
Oh my gosh, I'm sure. No, it's such a pleasure. It said still one of the most talented authors working today. Kellerman dials up yet another page-turning adventure starring Alex Delaware, riveting and full of twists and turns that'll keep you glued to the pages. I found this to be one of Kellerman's best books to date, and that's really saying something when you look at his extraordinary body of work. Congratulations on that, Jonathan, and what a pleasure to see your work and your continued body of work growing, and to see it received and appreciated this way, because like you said, you write a series, so you have to meet people who this may be their first Kellerman,
right? Exactly.
Or this, I think it was Laura who said she's 11 Kellermans in and loving it. So you have to give her, as you said, that comfortable familiarity while still giving someone who's brand new a soft place to land. How do you balance that?
Well, you have to be not self-critical, but self-evaluating. As I say, I start every day by rewriting the previous day, or sometimes the previous 2 and 3, 4 days' work. I call it up on my screen, I look at it, and I start to rewrite it. It does a couple things. First of all, it makes the writing better because I'm refining it and I'm defining it. But it also helps to segue from the old stuff to the new stuff, because you want to create a coherent body of work. You want to create a novel. You don't want to create 85-page chunks. It has to be unified. Okay. So it's a strange business. It takes a year to write one of these things. To some people, it takes longer, but you do it in small segments. So the key to finding it smooth is, I think, by rewriting the previous day, and then you segue into it, and you get into what the psychologists call flow. I had a woman doing a doctoral dissertation. She interviewed me about flow, and flow is when you get into the altered state of consciousness. When I was a psychologist working with children with cancer, I had several grants to study hypnosis as a form of analgesia. So I learned a lot about it. And what you learn about the hypnoidal states it's an altered state of consciousness in which usually time speeds up or can slow down. But the cliche, time goes quickly when you're having fun. I could sit down at the computer and get up 3-4 hours later, and it feels like nothing, because I've been so concentrating on what I'm doing. I just feel extremely grateful. The Delaware series, to my knowledge, is the longest running American crime series. I mean, it started in 1985 and all the books are in print. So it's an amazing thing to me. And what I try to do is make every single book different, but yet maintain the same characters. So to develop them, but to a different type of story. It's interesting. I don't want to sound paranoid, but I'll look at movies, especially Nordic noir stuff, and I see my books have been ripped off from all these stories, this stuff I did 20, 30 years ago. I said, wait a second, that's a book I read 20 years. Maybe not. Maybe I'm paranoid, but I've just created a lot of stories here. And I just try to enlarge them. And I just try to do the best job possible. I don't know another way to do it. When I had this surgery, so my loving wife said, now look, John, don't be your usual type A personality. Don't try to do too much. Don't overdo it. So, it's just you keep up a certain standard, basically. You please yourself. I'm not letting it
Ooh.
out until I'm happy with it. And
Ooh.
hopefully people appreciate it. It doesn't always happen occasionally. This book has garnered raves from everybody. I can't tell you why. I'm pleased, I'm flattered, but that's not really what motivates me. What motivates me, the same way as when I'm painting or when I was seeing patients, is to just do a good job.
Oh, I
You know?
love that. I love that, Jonathan. Jane, welcome to the conversation, saying, I love the characters. I can't wait to read the latest book. Lois saying, I have read them all and all of Faye's. They are awesome. Thank you so much, Lois.
Well, you know, excuse me for breaking in, but Jane's comment was very telling. She
Yeah.
loves the characters. We spent a lot of time plotting. We spent a lot of time on plot and structure. And yet you're going to forget that. While you're reading, it has to make sense to you. But in the end, what's going to stick with you are the characters. And the characters come from the story. You know, a lot of people separate. I characterize, I don't have story. David Mamet said it all. Story is everything. The characterization comes through the story. And I agree with him 100%.
I love that. I love that. And Jane, thank you for your enthusiasm and excitement about the latest book out tomorrow. And y'all, here is that link. So click and order from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore, and the good folks at Murder by the Book will ship it out to you tomorrow. Here's that link, no matter where you're watching from, Facebook or YouTube. Grab your copy now, and you will want to immerse yourself in the world of unnatural history. Samuel, welcome to the conversation. He would like to know, are you still thinking of a work criminal?
I'm not sure what that means.
I'm not sure what that means. Samuel, can you explain it a little more? Angela is saying, one thing I've always loved about your book series is the way you are so descriptive about people and places. I have my own, quote, image in my head of Alex and Milo. Also, your descriptions of Blanche are super.
Yeah.
You and I once had an email exchange in 2008 when you brought Blanche into the story. I had been so sad about the loss of Spike.
Well, you know, Blanche is Alex and Robin's dog. I'm telling you straight out, Faye and I are dog people. I mean, we are all kinds of people too. We love cats, but we're allergic to them. We have fish, we have birds, but we have our 8th dog. All the other dogs have passed on, and we have this rescue dog. We call her the 5th child who doesn't talk back. I knew poodles were smart. I didn't appreciate it till I had one. I have to spell words. So let me tell you a funny story about the altruism of dogs. I'm sitting in my office right here working on my book. Faye was out of town. Colette, which is our dog, she's a little tiny 20-pound miniature white poodle. She's mixed. I mean, she was, and I'll tell you, her story is a fascinating one too, but she comes rushing in. So I say, okay, honey, you need to go to the bathroom. No problem. So I walk through the house. I open the door thinking she's going to go out and go to the bathroom. She never has accidents. She's brilliant. And there's this stray cat that used to come to our house off and on, and we would feed it all the time. The cat was there waiting, meowing. I didn't hear her because it's on the other side of the property. And Colette wanted me to feed the cat. Colette stands there till I feed the cat, and then we go back inside the house. How do you explain that? It's amazing, right? So we love, I talk about, I think dogs are morally superior to people. The dog's an interesting animal. We humans created dogs. They're a created animal, and they're just, I can't say enough about dogs. We just love them. You know?
I love them too. Yeah. And so I have a little I have a 16-pound rescue dog from Texas. She's a quarter poodle. I did her DNA to find that out. Yeah. And she is a genius. So everything I've read is that if the smartest dogs, which are poodles, can have a vocabulary of up to 2,000 words.
It wouldn't surprise me.
As smart as a human child, at least to the age of 2. Our dog is she has an incredible vocabulary. And my husband and I always say she has us very well trained. She's bell trained. So she rings her bell when she wants to go out. Yeah. She communicates with us in all sorts of different ways. When she wants to eat, what she wants to eat. I mean, she is a tiny genius. It's not easy being the mother of a gifted child, but somehow we'll manage, Jonathan.
It's really amazing because her story, Colette's story, is she was found as a stray roaming the streets of Riverside, California, which is a tough town, with 5 newborn puppies. Now, California has lots of stupid laws. Okay, we're a state that promulgates laws daily, and one of their many stupid laws is you can't keep puppies of a certain age in a city shelter. So they take all 6 dogs, and they are scheduled to be euthanized on 9/11. Okay, a little poodle with 5 newborn puppies. They're going to kill them all. That's government, right? So fortunately, there's this active rescue mechanism out there, and they rescue them. And Colette nurtures her. They all have kennel cough. Someone had kicked 2 of her teeth in. I mean, she's a little white fluffy thing. And so finally, the dogs are weaned, and they spay her, and they health. And I happened to go online. We hadn't had a dog in a couple of years. Our last dog died. And I would say, I don't want to go through this grieving process anymore. And face it, no, we have to get a dog. So, and I want a white fluffy thing. I said, because we had bulldogs and mastiffs and papillons, and I happened to go online, and this dog came up, and we had to fill out a 6-page form. And the woman, fortunately, I think we had a little bit of benefit. She said, this has to be a couple that's home mostly. And she knew who we were, and she knew we were mostly home. So she brings the dog out to where we live, 150 miles. And this dog comes out, and she's adorable. And she's walking around the property, very quiet. We're talking to the foster mother, to Lisa. And then the dog jumps up in between us. And Lisa says, she's giving me the stink eye. She picked her parents. I'll see you. And it's been love at first sight. I've never had such a smart dog. We've had okay dogs. I've loved them all. I have 7-pound dog, 150-pound dog, all kinds of dogs. This dog she's perfect for us. She's quiet. She does not like other dogs. She's not aggressive, but she really thinks she's above it all. She ignores them. Because 2 of my daughters have dogs. One's a pug and one's a Bernedoodle. They bring them over. Colette ignores them. She's not mean. She just wants nothing to do with any dogs. And it's a misconception. I actually saw a very fascinating study on dog behavior. They actually tested dogs, difference between wolves and dogs. Wolves always prefer wolves to people. Dogs always prefer people to other dogs. Yes. So people think they're getting a friend for you want to get fried, but their main thing is they want people. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting. Yeah. And it's so true. And we rescued our little 6-pound rescue mutt from Texas.
So cute.
And I knew my friend Rebecca her parents had rescued her sister, Pele's sister. Yeah. And then they had adopted, she was found with her litter mates and her mother under a shed. And then they adopted them all out, and there was one left, and no one would adopt her. And I said, well, why will no one adopt the last sister? And they said, well, she's, I'm going to cover her little ears. She's the ugly one. So of course I had to have her. And then I noticed when they sent me pictures, this is really crazy. When I was born, I had a birthmark on my cheek. And when they sent me a picture of her, she had the same shaped birthmark on her chest. So I said, there's my doggy daughter.
There you go. It's wonderful.
She picked her. Laura saying, same here. She has to spell her words around her dog. Here's a TREAT.
Right, 100%.
And here we have Samuel has clarified his question. Samuel, thank you. There was a typo. He wants to know if you're going to write a series about a woke, politically correct criminal.
Aren't they all? No, I just did an interview where I talk about this whole concept of cultural appropriation, which is this crazy notion that you can't write about something unless you're the same. You can't write about Italians unless you're Italian. Can't write about blacks unless you're black. And it's the most moronic, stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. It just makes no sense. I hate woke. I hate anything that restricts freedom. And I think it's just stupid stuff that, sushi is a good example.
I love
sushi was street food. Okay. But if you go to Japan now, they will have California rolls. They'll have avocado in there. Culture is enriched when we trade off, when we get together. The history of civilization is one. So by trying to, these stupid kids who try to isolate, say, you can't write about sushi unless you're Japanese. That's just dumb. So woke is not something I don't write a political novel. I really try to stay away from politics. I try to write about psychology and the inner workings of people's minds and stay away from all sorts of political stuff. But I don't like woke.
It's interesting because I think there's just a big op-ed in the New York Times about this, and by Pamela Paul, the former New York Times book editor, who was saying that a book, I think she said it was American Dirt, had sort of traumatized the publishing industry and created this idea about cultural appropriation. And now we're seeing this trend where, to your point, where people are saying, oh, should the people with the knowledge of that culture, from that culture, be the only ones allowed to write about it? And I think the reason that has come forth is because a lot of those people have been excluded from the conversation at all, have not had a seat at the table at all. It's been traditionally harder for people, of color to get a publishing deal or to have their voices told. And so what has happened is that, that if they're not having any, if a group isn't having any voice and then they're only being represented by white writers, that wouldn't feel, that would be problematic as well.
I mean, it should be based on talent. There's plenty of talent everywhere, but cultural appropriation, you have to say it's stupid. Okay. And it'll stop when people make fun of it and say stupid and don't get too hot under the collar. What? I'm only allowed to write about 73-year-old men. I mean, come on.
Jonathan, who live in California and have rescue dogs.
Exactly.
Leslie saying, I'm not sure how to say this, papillons or papillon.
Papillons. We had a few of those too. I had one lived 18 years. They're these little butterfly-eared spaniels. Adorable.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh, Jonathan, I've just realized I've kept you way later. Oh, Laura's saying when whodunits become woke. She's sharing a fascinating article. Y'all, I just want to share Jonathan's book one more time is out tomorrow and you can pre-order it tonight and the good folks at Murder by the Book will ship it out tomorrow. So here again is that link. You will want to read Unnatural History and immerse yourself in the latest Jonathan Kellerman. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on, especially with everything that's going on in your life with your hip replacement, your 12th grandchild. And again, my condolences on the loss of your mother. May her memory be a blessing. And I hope that you will come back and share your next Alex Delaware with us next 100%. Year. Denise saying thank you, Laura saying thank you, Kathleen saying it will definitely be my 12th Kellerman. She can hardly wait. Oh, here's your 12th Kellerman. Kathleen's 12th Kellerman. Angela saying thank you so much. Y'all, thank you for spending your Mystery Monday with me, Jonathan Kellerman. Always such a pleasure and such an honor to host you, sir. Congratulations and happy Pub Day to you tomorrow. I will see you in a year.
I look forward to it every year, Sarah. We will do it every year. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, y'all. We'll see you. I will see you next Mystery Monday. Have a great week till then.
Okay. Bye-bye.